This morning we are going to undertake the first of our staff discourses that are designed to improve the efficiency of every person on the staff of the Summit Lighthouse. Our topic is entitled The Art of Verbal Communication. You will note that I have drawn a pair of wings here. The reason I've drawn this pair of wings is because it is somewhat related to the planet Mercury, and we think in terms of wings as being very swift, particularly when they are on the helmet of the god Mercury. You've seen this god Mercury with the wings on the helmet. Now actually, the idea is swift and sudden communication. The wings are supposed to symbolize speed. Today, in radio and telephone, telegraph communication, we have come to think in terms of rapidity. The Postal Service today, in spite of its efficiency, is considered woefully slow for those who think with almost the speed of light and want to communicate in the same manner. Now, I want to point out to you that in the course of a day, almost everything that we do is related to communication because of the inherent meaning of the word. For if we break the word up, it means communication. Now, the come is a command, and the you relates to the individual coming in to a state of oneness, because you know unai is one, and ation is related to action. A-C-T-I-O-N is only missing the C, you see. So the verb here is down here at the end as action. You take the action to come into one. You see the point? And therefore, in the meaning of the word, we see that the whole and sole purpose of communicating with anyone is so that they will come into the same thought that the person speaking or attempting to communicate is trying to convey. In other words, if we think in terms of a circle like this, that's the thought in our mind. The other person should receive a circle like this, you see. Now, if we think in terms of a circle with an X over it like that, we should receive it like that, not like that, you see. However, the thought that we hold in our mind, let's use a funnel. We'll draw this funnel here, and then we'll have a beaker or a cup here that we're going to pour from. Put a handle on it. The liquid is running down into this funnel. And here we have a container. I'm going to call this cup A, funnel B, and C the jug. Now, A is the mind. It's the cup of the mind of the person who attempts to communicate. B is the funnel, and C is the jug. Now, what is B? What is the funnel? The funnel, of course, is the means through which we attempt to communicate. But we have something else. We have the ingredient that is in the cup up here, that is flowing in the stream through the funnel and into the jug. What is that? That is the idea. We must also recognize then that we have acting an idea. That's a pattern. Now we have B, which is the funnel, and that is the media that we are attempting to communicate with, and the media may be a spoken word, or a written word, or a picture, or a gesture. Do you see my point there? That is the media. Then we have C, the consciousness of the person we're trying to reach. We are then trying to take an idea up here in this cup, pour that idea through the funnel of some media, so that that will then get into the consciousness labeled C here. You see, that is basically what we're trying to do. Now, there are many things that can happen in the art of communicating from point A to point C. It seems such a simple process. But what actually happens to it is this: that the clarity of the idea pattern up here must first of all be very, very clear to the average person that's going to communicate before they begin to release it into the funnel B. Therefore, the first law in the art of communicating is to clarify your own ideas, and I, of course, want this underlined. It's clarification of ideas. Clarify your ideas for yourself, in other words. Be very sure that you know what you are going to tell the other person, because if you don't know yourself what you're going to convey, how can you expect to convey it? This is what St. Paul referred to when he said, "If the trumpet give an uncertain sound." Therefore, you must clarify your own idea in this cup up here before you ever let it go. Do you see the point? How very important it is that that be clarified. Now, after you've clarified it, then you must determine what media you are going to use to release it. And each media has its own drawbacks. For example, at a table laden with many things, if you decide you're going to use the gesture, so you say, "Now bring me that." How ambiguous this is if a desk be laden with many objects. So the gesture is not going to be used, now is it? All right? So you have a mouthful of food. And it's very imperative that you get this message across to somebody quickly. And you grab a pencil, you decide that writing is the best way to do it because you have food and you're going to continue chewing it and you can't talk very well. So you take a pad out and you write it down. Then you've decided to write your idea. All right. You've chosen your media. So after clarifying the idea in your mind till you know what you want to tell, then you choose the media to tell it. Now then, you must clarify for the media, or adapt. That's your third point, to the media. Clarify or adapt to the media. Do you see the point then? Now, what is the next step then? It's simply to express that which is all clarified. Express, the action of expressing. This can be a written expression, a gesture. It can be a spoken word. Now you see how that most people fail to realize the great wisdom that is behind that silly little saying that mankind used in the outer so much. They'll say, "Do not begin to speak until your mind is in gear with your mouth." You know, you've heard people say, "Don't talk until your mind is in gear. Don't open your mouth until your mind is in gear. Put your mind in gear first." All they're trying to tell you is to clarify. It's that simple. So clarify to yourself your idea. Clarify it and adapt it to the media of expression and then express. That's all there is to it. Aha! We now have a picture of a downward thrust. The outflow of an idea. Now let us look at it from the other side. And I'd like to do it in terms of table tennis or a tennis court. All of this action is the idea of serving a verbal communication to the other person. You've served. But in tennis, what happens sometime when someone serves, Bill?
Well, you can either get it in or get it out.
That's right. Sometimes the ball goes clear across the line. You have to chase the ball. Then again, the ball is within the range of where you can reach it by running. Then sometimes you can reach it by just stretching your hand. Sometimes it comes square right across the net in perfect position and you can bat the thing right back, you see. What you want to do with an idea then is what we want to take up next. One person has clarified their idea, they've chosen their media, they've expressed through an adaptable media the idea. Now the other person is going to receive. That's the sender. That's the sender. Now let's consider the whole structure from the receiver, because this is entirely different. The first thing you have to remember is that point C doesn't have any idea at all about the idea that you have in your mind. He doesn't know what you're going to tell him. Some people say, oh, well, this person is almost psychic. They get my thoughts before I ever have expressed them. Perfectly correct with some people. Because some people have a sensitivity that enables them to go up here to the cup of your brain consciousness in your mind. And they can get the thought that's in your mind through radiation ahead of time. This cuts all the way across through this funnel and jug business, doesn't it? Because it gives you a direct contact with the mind. But the point is, you cannot, and there are many jokes about women communicating with each other, and one will say to the other, I saw Mary Jones yesterday with her, oh yes, wasn't that interesting? Well, he does look a little bit as though he'd been through something very difficult, doesn't he? Oh yes, he certainly does. Why, you know that's right, he did. And I mean, they go on and on ad infinitum, and each one understands the other, but anyone listening would never know what they were talking about. Well, this is very true, you see. So we have to come back to the idea of the receiver. And I think the best way for everyone in this house to function, and everyone on this staff, is to quit trying to figure idea patterns from the other. I'm going to tell you why. Everybody doesn't have this ability. If every one of us had the Ascended Master's ability to catch ideas directly from the mind of the other, we wouldn't need to talk at all. We could just flash light rays to each other and the whole idea would be conveyed. But let's not try to work a half and half proposition here. Let's not try to function entirely on that level at all. Let's try to communicate, as I have said here, the art of verbal communication. You notice that I took up in this media several other communications, such as gestures and writing, written communication. Yet I titled it The Art of Verbal Communication. I took these up because I wanted to treat of them, you see. In this case, we are choosing words, and that's what I'm basically going to get into here, is words. Because you're going to take an idea, you're going to convert it, you're going to choose your media here, which is words, you're going to clarify it in the words, and then you're going to speak it as an action of expression. Now, it's the catching of an idea that is what we're on right now. In other words, we now are at position C. We're going to receive the idea. We have no idea what the idea is, but we do know the media. So we have to work in the media. We have to go to the funnel and let the words come down, you see, into our consciousness. And we collect these words just as a cup would collect drippings. or a tennis racket contacts a ball, but the mind must be adroit. And therefore, the first thing we have to do is, one, is collect. Collect the media, or connect with the media, you see. Collect and connect. Then, two, we have to be adroit. What is the meaning of adroit? How many know what it means? Tom?
It means facile and quick and able.
Again, it gets us back here to the same step as 3, to clarify or adapt to the media. We have to do it in reverse. We have to be adroit, fast, and facile, and adaptable in ourself to understand. Now here's where your limitation comes in. The bigger vocabulary you have, the easier it is for you to understand a person with a big vocabulary. However, I think that it is best to speak simply when you're giving orders or directives to people. I think the time to use a big vocabulary is perhaps in writing some dissertation where it's important that you have subtle words and words with many nuances, many facets of ideas. This is fine in writing. Ascended masters do it. Very learned people do it, because it's the only way you can convey many-sided ideas. You can't really convey something that is basically simple. You can simplify. But you can reach a point where your simplification loses its heterogeneity, if you understand exactly what I mean. And so it doesn't hold together well. And it no longer becomes a facile concept. It's not a concept that is working easily and fast and swiftly. It takes a person longer sometimes to put the thing together from the simple level then than it does from the other. So everyone should make an attempt to build their vocabulary quite naturally. This is important. And a dictionary is very valuable, because when you understand the meaning of many words instead of a few, you can catch ideas that are deposited in many words. Each word is a cup, you see. The Ascended Masters tell us that each word is a cup of light. And I suppose basically that every word in the dictionary that is a good word should be made a cup of light by us, by properly charging it with light as we use it. I mean, it should hold a good idea. It's worthy of it. Take the word good or beneficent, kindly, sweet, unity, brotherhood, tact, diplomacy. All these words are cups of light, you see, whether they're used by the outer world or they're used by the world of children of light. So, the thing we have to remember is to collect the words of the other. There's some pitfalls here. I'm going to get into them in a minute. Now we have the adroitness of the mind, and 3 is consideration. Now, why do you have to consider an idea, Bill? Or consider the words that you've received? Why do you have to consider the worded expression? Why must you consider it?
Well, I'll double check it that you understand it.
All right, that's good. And 4 is express or acknowledge to the sender either that you understood, in which case you assent by saying, yes, I understand, or express doubt if you don't. Now these steps are extremely important. You are collecting information when you are spoken to. You must be adroit in the handling of that information that was served to you. You must consider and weigh what was spoken in the light of your understanding and interpretation of that information. You must interpret that, in other words. That's consideration and interpretation. And then you must express an acknowledgement. And we get back here now to St. Germain's courtesy. It would be a very good thing in this organization if all of you, in speaking to Elizabeth, or to Sonny, or to Bill, or to myself, would either say, yes, I don't care if you want to say yes, sir, or not. I'm not trying to make you into a military organization. But You never do wrong in this state of Virginia. Yes, sir, is used in Virginia a great deal in business. Even a man will come to your door. Even good friends, attorneys, that are sitting together and having lunch together, they often say, yes, sir, or no, sir. I mean, this is very common here. I want to point out that in the Army, I know myself, I rather objected, although I realized that we had to do it, to this constant yes, sir. But boy, we did it, didn't we? It was necessary. I don't think that a word is wrong in itself. In other words, the idea of saying yes, sir is not wrong, is it? It's not wrong to say yes, sir, to anyone. Or yes, ma'am, something like that. There's nothing wrong with the idea of saying it. If you don't care to say yes, sir, you can say, yes, Bob. Yes, Mark. Yes, Tom. Yes, Bill. I mean, you're permitted to say that. I think that if you recognize that this comes under acknowledgement of the expression. If you get a direct acknowledgement that says, yes, sir, it signifies, I have understood. Now, I want you people to consider the art of verbal communication from this level. And I think with this simple statement that I have made here, it can make a world of difference as to the results that we will accomplish in our daily happenings around here if we will remember how to trace the art of verbal communication or the art of any form of communication and realize that all we're doing is conveying an idea from our mind which cannot be any clearer in the conveyance. In other words, this is like somebody dying and going to heaven. An idea up here is like a person who dies. And then they go into the other world. They aren't going to be any more perfect when they get to heaven than they were when they left earth. The act of dying does not make anyone into a saint. You see what I mean? And the act of an idea that's born up here, flowing out into expression, doesn't make it more clear. It doesn't become clarified automatically because it passes into a media of expression. It cannot express a clarity that it does not have in the mind, and therefore, this is the basis of the statement that IBM has used and considers worthwhile. And it was known before IBM used it, as Sonny has pointed out to me, in industry. The word think, printed on cards, put on desks all over the world, is done simply because very few people actually practice the art of thinking before they speak. Many people speak before they think. And this is putting the cart before the horse. So let us practice a little cogitation in clarifying our ideas. But I want to give you a solemn warning here. People can get so goofy and sluggish in this that they spend half an hour trying to think up that they want a loaf of bread. I mean, don't be goofy about this. Be sensible about this. Use a sensible approach to it. I mean, many things you can think of quickly. Do so. Remember, the quicker you can think of an idea, the better. In fact, I put the wings up here because this is a central idea of communication. To communicate with yourself. Now I'm going to go backward a little bit to the idea. I'm going to just review the whole thing. Let's go back to the idea pattern. All you're doing when you formulate an idea is communicating with yourself. And when you communicate with yourself, it's a threefold action based on a triangle. Here you are at one point of the triangle. This is your consciousness. And here is your memory. And here is your Christ intelligence. Do you see what I mean? Now all you're doing is you, here, are going to the storehouse and then up to the Christ intelligence and then back to you again. Do you see what I mean? That's all you're doing when you're conceiving an idea. It takes 2 poles to conceive the idea and 3 to manifest it. You see what I mean? Are you getting this or not? In other words, you have to be one pole, your storehouse of memory. You have to have a memory of identity. You have to know who you are. You have to have some pattern of knowledge stored in your being to make the threads of identity. You have to have something. That's what an idiot is someone who doesn't have any memory. I mean, they don't have any basis of anything. They have never learned. Therefore, how can they know if they've never learned? You have all learned. You have a storehouse. You can then improve ideas 3 ways. 1, right here in your own consciousness, by improving the quality of your consciousness, and that comes from your presence. You can improve the quality of your consciousness. You can improve the quality of your attunement with your memory. And you can improve your contact with your Christ intelligence. And when that works right, this triangle glows as a solid bar. It's a trinity of angles. See? When you understand the higher law, of course, you have your other angle up here. We won't go into that right now. The other triangle up here. And you have the sacred word in the middle. And so the art of communication is the art of the spoken word. And this is actually is basic creation, is what it is. And if you would stop and think, and now I'm getting into the very serious part of this dissertation, that all communication is supposed to be based on the universe coming into one unity, which puts the circle around this and gets back to the divine Theosophia. Now, in other words, in the Theosophical Society, when they build up their symbol with a serpent going around which showed the circle of existence, the continuity of existence, and they had the triangles inside. And I don't know if they used this ancient Hebraic symbol or not, of the 2 dots in there, I mean the 2 apostrophes like. But the whole idea which I have used here, which I've tried to convey to you, is that actually communication is the attempt of the Godhead itself to communicate through the Word, the release of the Word into creation. The very Word and the very creative act of God was to bring the manifestation into union with the Creator. Therefore, the power of communication is very sacred. And long ago, this relates to the lost word, because the lost word is the lost art of man communicating with his Creator. And the key to this is found in 1 Genesis, where it states that Adam walked in the garden, and he walked with God, it says, in the Garden of Eden, in the cool of the day. This shows that there was a communication between Adam and God. He had complete and direct communication with his presence. And the power of the spoken word of God was heard by Adam. He could hear the voice of God. And it was the breaking of that cord of communication, the rupture, where there was a broken thread. That's where the problem came in. And today, all communication should be based on trying to bring people into a unity with God. Even if I ask for a crust of bread from you, or you ask for a loaf of bread from me, it doesn't make any difference what it is. I mean, this is to sustain the body, you see, so that the soul can learn. There is nothing in life, I don't care what it is that we do, that is not central to life itself. And therefore communication is essential. Even courtesy and simple little things, it's all essential. So you must recognize that the key to splendid communication lies in close attunement with God, who is the Word. God is the Word. Im Anfang war das Wort. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word, und das Wort, war bei Gott. Gott. Und Gott war das Wort. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You see. The Word is you. When you speak, that Word should be yourself. And therefore, the closer you can identify your expressions with the reality of yourself, not necessarily so much in the spoken matrices of words, but in the vibratory action of the words you speak, You can put the reality of God in your words, even if you just said thank you. And I want to close this with one little thought. If Jesus said thank you to someone, it could be so mellifluous, so charged with light, so completely profound, that the words spoken by Jesus would not sound at all as the hollow sound that comes from so many people who mechanically say thank you when they don't mean it at all. So let the art of communication, the art of verbal communication, become a splendid manifestation in this activity. I want all of you to think well on communication, or we will leave this subject and go to something else. But we may someday come back to it, to expand upon this. And I will conclude this address and thank you.